It's a done deal. Singapore will be hosting the Formula One Singapore Grand Prix this year, as well as the next 6 years after that. The Singapore Tourism Board and Singapore GP today announcing a contract that will run from 2022 until 2028, with this year's race taking place on October the 2nd. The 7-year deal is the longest renewal between the government and Formula One Group. The previous ones were between 4 and 5 years. The agreement also means that by the time 2028 comes around, the Grand Prix would have been in Singapore for 20 years, ever since the inaugural first ever nighttime race in 2008. The last two were cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Big news indeed, and here to discuss it is Assistant Sports Editor Jonathan Wong. John, the Singapore Grand Prix is happening this year. You've covered previous races pre-pandemic. What did STB say about what the 2022 race would look like for drivers, their teams, officials, as well as local and overseas fans?
Hey, Olivia. They haven't really given much detail in terms of what this year's race will be in October. I mean, given the fact that it's 8 months away, I think it might be a bit premature to talk about testing and how much borders will be open because of the pandemic. But I think in 2019, there were about 270,000 fans that came over the race weekend. I mean, I think realistically, you're not going to see that many fans, but I think you will see a sizable number of fans, and I think they're looking at bringing in overseas fans as well, which would be a great thing, so that it kind of shows that we are opened up. And as well, I think we have there are quite a few VTLs that are already up, and these are with countries that are big F1 following, like Australia, the UK, US, Western Europe. So I think there are routes and options available for overseas fans to come here, as well as the teams themselves.
I see. Well, John, could you help us also underscore the significance of this new contract vis-a-vis Singapore's reopening?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, as we talked about, 7 years, so that's a huge commitment in terms of time by the Singapore side for F1. I mean, if it's 7 years and it costs about 135 million each year, you're talking about almost $1 billion commitment for 7 years. Mm-hmm. And that goes into so many things, for the different businesses, for the MICE industry, because with 7 years, there is that commitment for them to be able to plan what they would like to work around the race itself. I guess it gives them a sort of a long-term commitment that Singapore is serious about hosting this race and that stuff that comes along with it.
Well, that is definitely great news for industries like the MICE industry, as you said. Well, the race didn't happen for the last 2 years. It may not happen this year. So, John, is hosting a Grand Prix, particularly before the pandemic is over, still economically viable for Singapore?
I think you have to look at it in the sense that it's a very strong message that the Singapore government is putting out, that we are ready to open, we are back in business, and it's important that I think with something like this, because we know that it brings in a lot of tourists. I mean, over the years, it's brought in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of overseas tourists, and that's what we kind of need for sectors that have been battered by the COVID, sort of like F&B, retail, hospitality. So they will look at this and feel like, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that this is something that they can look forward to, not just for the F1 race, obviously, but because, as international travel opens up, I think this is sort of like a signal that, Singapore is ready to welcome international tourists. And I think tourism accounted for about $20 billion in 2019. So this is a sizable amount of money that we're talking about.